Alright, today we're doing the top 5 tools that I use as a custom carpenter. I'm going to go through all 5 of them, tell you what I use them for, give you some examples, and I'm going to give you a bonus tool at the end. Stay tuned and check it out. Alright, first thing is the table saw. The table saw is the workhorse of the shop. It is something I use pretty much with every project. Breaking down plywood, ripping long pieces. I usually get S3S material when it comes to my hardwoods. So I've got that one straight side already. The table saw allows me to put that straight edge up against the fence, rip it down, give me a nice long straight board. Table saw is definitely something that you want to have in your shop. Now I only have a job site table saw that I got years ago, and it definitely would be worth it to buy a nice good cabinet saw, but it's not something I've put the money into yet, because even this thing right here still gets the job done. Table saw, gotta have it. Alright, next tool is the miter saw. Miter saw I use all the time. This thing goes with me on the job sites because I'm always cutting trim, making miters on different pieces of material. Obviously being able to adjust both ways, being able to cut those 45s, or if you have a 45-degree wall, doing your 22.5s. Those are the most common miters you see in houses. This also gives me a straight 90 if I need to chop something. Very versatile tool, use it all the time. Get the bevel. The dual bevel is definitely the way to go if you're getting your first miter saw. It's worth it to get that. That way you can tilt it left or right. You can get a 45 or a 22.5 or whatever on your bevel as well. Gotta have a miter saw if you're doing anything with carpentry. It really makes things a lot easier. You don't want to be hand cutting miters. That's going to take you forever. Miter saw. Alright, next tool that I use all the time, like for every project, is going to be clamps. Clamps come in all different shapes and sizes and different uses. I've got just about every kind you can think of. I like having these small ones if I just need basically like another set of hands. I can sit there and clamp the piece in place when I do whatever I need to do. Same thing goes for these bigger squeeze clamps. Those are all great. Get your C clamps, F clamps, whatever you want to call them. They hold things in place. And then some people say these are overrated. A lot of people like the pipe clamps. I haven't gotten into the pipe clamps, but I love these parallel clamps. Gluing up tabletops, countertops, cabinet doors. I do a lot of cabinet doors, so having these in the shop, a bunch of them, definitely worth it. It takes some time to accumulate a bunch of them because they aren't cheap, but if you're going to be doing cabinets and cabinet doors and constantly gluing up tables and stuff, it's worth it. You know, the pipe clamps work, I'm sure. I'm not going to knock them because I've never tried them, but I enjoy using those. They're easy to work with and they get the job done. So, clamps. Next tool that I would say is definitely worth the investment and you should go ahead and go get is a track saw. I put off getting a track saw for a long time. It felt like it was a lot of money, and I saw everybody else on YouTube using them, and finally said, let me buy this thing and give it a shot. I talked to the guy at Woodcraft where I bought it and said, is it really worth it? He said, it makes it 1,000,000 times easier. And he was right. There's no doubt that the track saw is worth the money. Take this thing, clamp it onto whatever material you're cutting. Saw sits, this little track sits on here, and you just ride it right along, straight edge every time. And it just cuts up to 2 inches. I like the Craig because that's what I've got. Not a sponsor yet. Craig, hit me up. But it just makes breaking down plywood so much easier. This is what I like to take to the job site if I can help not taking the table saw. be able to just grab the track saw, fits in the truck real easy, and be able to cut long straight pieces pretty simply. Worth it. Usually comes with a splinter guard, so you don't have a whole bunch of tear out when you're ripping some plywood, especially cross cutting. I would say if you're really going to take it serious, get into the woodworking thing, track saw is worth an investment. Spend the money on it, get a good one, take care of it, go get a track saw. Alright, next one, screw gun. A lot of people don't talk about needing a screw gun, but I think it's one of the most versatile things as far as maybe a more necessary thing than a lot of the other tools. Obviously you gotta be able to cut and stuff, but you use screw guns for everything. Anything that needs to be screwed in or unscrewed. I use pocket holes on a lot of my cabinets. It's fairly common, especially in tops and backs when you have the nailer pieces. So having a pocket hole jig is very helpful, but you gotta have a screw gun to screw all those things in. There's a lot of things that need to be put together. Screws will help with that. So I recommend a screw gun. I keep a couple of them, both brands. Don't screw. But definitely get your screw gun, because it's going to help you not just in woodworking, but just around the house and whatever it is that you're doing. It's worth getting a good screw gun. Don't use a drill to screw things in. Alright, bonus. Nail gun. Nail guns are very helpful when it comes to a lot of woodworking. Obviously I do a lot of trim carpentry as well, so nailing in baseboards, crown molding, casings around windows and doors and stuff. Having a nail gun, especially a battery powered one, is worth it. I love the fact that I can just throw this thing in the truck. I'm not fiddling with a compressor and all that other stuff. I get the ones that I have DeWalt because most of my power tools are DeWalt batteries, so it keeps consistently. Waiting for them to come out with a pin nailer, battery powered. I think I may have seen one. DeWalt, hit me up, let me know. Let's get a DeWalt pin nailer, because I use pin nails to hold a lot of things in place, especially in paint grade material. It's just strong enough that it'll just hold it, let the glue dry. Pin nailers are great, especially if you're doing a stained finish on things that need to be held in place. Pin nails you can't see, right? Whereas if you're putting even a brad nail in it, you're gonna create a big enough hole. Then you're trying to put a wood filler in there. The wood filler just doesn't look right stained. You can't get away with it, with the naked eye. So have a pin nailer, 23 gauge. Brad nailer, 18, maybe 16 gauge. If you're doing a bunch of framing, get yourself a framing nailer, but have a nail gun. Definitely worth it if you're working with a whole bunch of wood and trim and stuff like that. Alright, hope you enjoyed that. Those are the top 5 things that I use pretty much on every project. I'm going to pull those tools out and use them at some point. If you're going to get into it, I would start with those things, those top 5 that I did right there. Table saw, it's not going to be cheap, but as long as you can get one and get started, that's going to really help you, because that's going to give you straighter lines on everything. The miter saw is a must, because you're going to have to cut things, chop them, angle cuts, very useful. The track saw is probably that thing that you could probably wait. Like I said, I waited for a little while because I didn't want to spend the money on it. It is worth it when you do get that money put together. Invest in that track saw. But then you've got to have a screw gun, right? And a nail gun will really kind of take you over the top as far as being able to put things together, especially if you're going to do any trim work. Having a good battery powered nail gun where you can sit there and punch nails in it. And then obviously clamps. Clamps are just useful, especially if you're working by yourself. I work by myself. Having an extra set of hands that I can clamp right there and keep things in place for me is really useful. So hope you enjoyed it. Hit the like, subscribe. See you all.